Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to Advanced Web Programming, and we're going to do a little JavaScript with the date object. And we've done some exercises before with the date object, and it's kind of a simple object to work with in JavaScript, but we'll customize a little bit to learn different parts of JavaScript. I'm looking here at my browser window in Firefox. Now, sometimes I'll use the W3 schools in Chrome, and then I'll switch to Firefox just to preview things, just so I don't get a lot of windows open and get confused. But anyway, this is the finished product here. It says click button to display today's date with slashes, and that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to hit the try it button, and there it is. Not very exciting, but we'll hopefully learn a lot just from customizing the date object a little bit. We're going to use a date method. We're going to use some variables for this, and we're also going to use the W3 Schools code to get started, because I find it's kind of easier to start with some of their little code snippets, and then we can actually, customize it in our text editor, which I'm going to be using Text Wrangler. You could use Notepad as well. So I'm going to go to W3 Schools, and just so you know, I'm going to go to the home page here on W3 Schools. If you go to the Learn JavaScript, it's not the easiest to navigate, but everything's here that you need. Let me make this window a little bigger. But on the home page, the very first thing they do is they show the date object, and all that the date object does is you just hit a button and it gives you this kind of generic date timestamp. And if that's what you want, fine, then you don't have to do anything, and then you could put that on your page. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to pull dates from this, we're going to pull days from this, we're going to pull months from this, and customize it so we could put it on the page the way we want it. Plus we'll learn about JavaScript code a little more than just using a generic timestamp. Okay, now on this page, that's about it on this page that it deals with the date object. If you go down the side here, there's all these things, and we're going to jump around a little bit, but there's the JS date. It's under advanced, but it's not that advanced. If we go to JS date, they talk about the different methods that you could use with the date object, and there is down here, it's a little hard to find, but in the middle there's this complete date object reference, and I bookmarked that. And if you click here, you'll see the date object, okay, which gives you basically the full date that you saw on that timestamp. And then there's all these methods that you could pull out parts of the dates, including parts of the times and all that. We'll just be working with a couple things. We'll be working with the date, which is the day of the month. Today's the 5th. We'll be working with the day. I think we won't work with the day on this one, but the day of the week, which today's Wednesday. And then we'll also work on the month, which notice it returns numbers from 0 to 11. So 0 is January, December is 11. So we have to fix that a little bit if we're going to do our little date with slashes. So we'll have to adjust that a little and just add 1 to it. So we're going to work with the get month method, the get date method, and then also the get full year. So we could just do this. That's all we're going to do is get this part. And we're also going to add some string to it, so it's going to read today's date is 2/5/2014. Okay, and we have some code there to make the button work, and we're going to do a function. So we're going to look at that first through the W3 schools. So I'm going to go back to the W3 schools, and I'm just going to use one of these here. I'm just going to start with the date object. I'll click on here, and they'll show like one of those try it windows, and I'll click on the get date method, and here's kind of showing what it does. It basically does new, and date is the object, this date with parentheses and a semicolon. And I'm just going to look at the full code here with this try it yourself. And just within the past day, they kind of changed the way this W3 Schools looks. Instead of the two windows, they now have kind of I don't know if this is temporary, but there's like a window here where they show the code, and then down here is the result. I prefer it side by side, but maybe this works better on mobile phones or something. But anyway, here's the HTML page down here of what's going to happen. And if you hit try it, it returns a 5. Which is basically today's the 5th, and we use that for we have another exercise where we're gonna write today is the 5th, and we use if-else statements so it could do the th and all that kind of thing. But just for now, what we're gonna do is put our date in slashes. So I'm gonna highlight all this code, and I'm not gonna work in here because I like the color coding of Text Wrangler or Notepad++. And I'm gonna right click and I'll copy, and I'm gonna go to Text Wrangler, and I'm gonna go File, New with Clipboard if you can do that, or you could just make a new document. And it pastes it right in here. If it doesn't color code it for you, you might have to save it because it may just be a text file. I'm going to save mine, and I'm going to call it date slashes, and I already had one here, last name. And you could put your name in here. So I'll just call it HOMA-R. So that's the one I'm working on. I do have another one that I tried ahead of time just to make sure it worked, so I had my sample. So I'm going to save this, and it's saving as an HTML. Okay, and again, here's our HTML code. Most of the HTML is in blue. Non-HTML things are in red. ID demo, which was used for CSS. Here's onClick function. That's JavaScript that's basically embedded into a button. And then here's our JavaScript, which is all right here in this inside this script tag, or starting and ending script tag. So there's not a whole lot here, but we're gonna change this a little bit. And notice that it starts off with a function, and a function starts with a curly bracket and ends with a curly bracket. So everything's inside this function. It declares the function right here, or defines it, and they just call it my function. You could call it anything you want. Same thing with variables. Here they have a variable d equals new date. This thing is the date object, and they're basically declaring the new date object, and we're going to call it d. So it's just shorter, easier to work with. Now here's another variable down here, and it's called var x. And x is basically document get element by ID demo. So what that is basically it's this stuff here. It's what's going to go in here. We're basically calling this paragraph, which is ID'd, called demo, and we're just going to say whatever we get, we're going to put in here. We don't know what we're going to put in there yet. We're probably going to put in today's date inside there and replace that original text. Now, actually, let me instead of the date of the month, I'll change this. I'll click the button to display today's date in slashes, which is the way it was on the sample. So I'll change that. That's just that's going to go away once we click the button. Our button can stay the same. Now here we have var x. Now, that's like algebra using var x. You can be a little more literal. I'm gonna change this and call it today's date, and I'll use camel case. And just you have to be careful of reserved words, but today's date is not a reserved word. And I'm using the capital D here. So today's date is my variable. And basically I'm saying, okay, instead of x, what's going to go here is going to be today's date. Okay? And now down here, this is actually the action that's going to write that out. It's going to basically say inner HTML writes HTML, and it's going to put the date in this place. So this is where it locates it, and it creates a variable based on it. This is where it actually puts it into your document. So we're not going to put X in there anymore. We're going to put today's date in there. So that's going to go inside there, and it's going to put date inside there. Okay, so I could save this right now, and if I want to, I could drag, now in Text Wrangler, I could drag this right to the Firefox icon, and here's what's happening. I'll hit try it, and it's saying 5. Now, the only problem, that's the date, it's the 5th, but we actually want to put the date in slashes. So we're going to have to change that. So I'm going to go back to my code, and I'm going to go back to Text Wrangler, and we're going to set a couple variables here, because we need the date, we need the month, which is 2, which is February, but we're going to use the 2, and then we're also going to need the year, which is 2014. So we're going to get that. We're going to pull those things all from this date object, and we're going to use methods to do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to, when we go 2/5/2014, we're going to want to get the month first. So we could start with the month, because that's the order that it will go. We'll start with the 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to do we'll create a variable. It'll be easier to follow that way. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call a variable called month, and I'll just call it month. And as I'm defining it, you could just declare it right away and then say equal to something else. Or you could say equals variable month will equal, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull it from the date object. And to pull it from the date object, we're going to pull month from the date object. So what we're going to do is to pull it, D stands for the date object. So it's D dot get month. Okay, so we're getting month, and I'll put my semicolon. So we're getting month. So of the date, we're going to get the month. So if D equals date, we're going to do D dot get month of the date object. So what it should get for us is it should get the month. Okay, and now after month, I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to see if I could get another variable called, let's see, 2/5. That would be day. So I'm going to go var day equals, And I'll do the same thing. I'll go d dot, and they have something called get date, I believe. The date, yes, the date of the month. Day would actually be the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we're going to do get date. This is the get date method, different than the date object. Okay, this is the method. These are methods here. So from the date, we're getting, the full date. That's what that means. D really means full date, but we're getting the date of the number date from the full date. So that's what we're doing here. So we're getting the month, which would be 2, or actually it's going to be 1. We're going to get the day, which should be the 5th. And then the last variable we're going to do here is we're going to do var year. We'll just call it year. And again, these are names we're giving it. And we're going to go d dot get full year. And if you're not sure what these things are that I'm using, these methods, just go back to your W3 schools. Here's my try it editor. I'm going to go back here, and here's all these. Let me see. Let me go back one here. I could go back here. Here's all my methods: date, get day, get full year, get month. So here's all those methods here. If you forget exactly how they're supposed to look, that's what they are. So that's what we have here. We have 3 methods: one for the month, one for the date, and one for the full year. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put that in slashes. And we're going to have to basically, instead of just displaying the date like we did before, this d.getDate just puts the date, which is 5. We want to put the whole thing together. So we're going to have to do a string to do that. So I'm going to stop here. Actually, let me just save it. And I'm going to stop here.